Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I was just having a really fun pre-show chat with our guest for today, and he said, coming to you live from quarantine. And I thought that was pretty incredible because that's the moment we're in right now. I don't know exactly when this podcast will be released, but at the moment, that's what's going on. There's big conversations on the table, and I actually had the pleasure of getting on our guest today. He has office hours, free office hours that anyone can come to ask questions. And I wanted to check them out because I think it's such a brilliant way to connect and get to know your people. And he's going to talk about that. But on that, we were talking a lot about the climate right now and what's going on in business and online thought leadership. And he has so many powerful things to bring to the table. So who we have today is Joe DeMaria, and he is the founder of Teach to Scale. He's a powerful business owner who has created online courses, and he really teaches from a totally different perspective that you're all going to want to hear about. You know that on this show, I bring on people who are experts in their industry, who have really high drive to make an impact in the world, and he's definitely one of those people. And you all know that I don't always read the bios, that I don't always read them, but I introduce people. His bio is so awesome that I actually just have to read it. So here we go. Joe DeMaria started his career at 9 years old, running an illicit back alley soda and candy cartel at his elementary school in Willow Glen, California. Within 2 weeks, he had employed 3 other hard-nosed, dirty-faced 9-year-old lieutenants, paying them 25 cents per unit sold. The Sugar Rush Syndicate was brought to an abrupt end when DeMaria's childhood best friend and wartime, I don't know how to say this actually,
consigliere.
Thank you. Consigliere was caught selling an A&W root beer on tape by one of the school's CCTV cameras. He was brought to justice just 5 weeks into the school year, netting an impressive, listen to this is powerful at 9 years old, $937.75. He refused to return the money, and today he teaches coaches, consultants, and peak performers how to create and use online courses to scale their businesses and their impact on their audiences through his company, Teach to Scale. So the reason I read that is because, awesome entrepreneurial spirit at 9 years old. Really, really fun story, which I know is something that you're big on. So I am psyched to have you here. Welcome to the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Of course, storytelling is a huge part of what you do. Obviously, even just on the show, it's a huge part of what we do. And if you look kind of going back thousands and thousands of years, storytelling is the number one way that we as people communicate and connect with one another. So it's a huge, huge pillar of business that not a lot of people are taking advantage of.
So true. And that's such a fun story and way to engage people and get into your childhood entrepreneur spirit. And then I want to know what happened to you after that. How did you get where you are in this business?
Well, it's the number one story that kind of my soon-to-be mother-in-law. That's how I got her approval. I guess she stalked my LinkedIn one day and saw that story as the bio and was like, all right, yeah, we're in, let's do this. It's personality piece is really important to anybody that's going to be doing a lot of front-facing consultative work, teaching, etc., coaching, whatever it is that you're doing. It's so important. But my story actually goes back probably 8 or almost 9 years ago. I'd dropped out of school in New York, moved back to the Bay Area. This is before both of those cities were in complete lockdown right now. So the pre-quarantine days. But I'd moved back and I'd started a advertising company. And I was just doing, I was like 19 years old, working with tech companies in the Silicon Valley, trying to figure out, I didn't even know what an advertising agency did. I would actually go home at night and then Google okay, well, what am I supposed to do now? And I'd sold my way into a couple companies and I was doing the work and I knew more than them, but I still had a hell of a lot to learn. I still do. I went through that for a while, and there were, quite a few boom bust cycles when you are just getting started. And I'm sure you've been there too. It was like these ups and downs, really high highs, very low lows. And I just hit this one rut that I couldn't get out of. And it was just, me sinking deeper and deeper and deeper. You start looking at it and you go like, okay, I had a law school thing set up. I was like, I had a trajectory here. I gave that up to do this, and now it's not working out. You start questioning everything. And I remember, and I think you and I have talked about this in the past, but I remember being basically dead broke. I had $2.86 in my bank account. And I was living in basically like San Jose, California, but not the nice part. And it was, I think, 106 degrees out that day, and it was like 94 in the house because the air conditioner was broken, which every good entrepreneur story has a broken air conditioner. This is a thing that every single one of us had a broken air conditioner.
You want to hear really fast? I know you'll be able to get back on track in your story. My kids and I, and my ex-husband, we lived in a lot of situations where we didn't have air conditioners, and we do a wet shirt trick. So we like wet the shirt and put it on. We're like, it's natural air conditioning.
Yeah, 100%. It's your own swamp cooler. That's exactly how that works. Yeah, it's like, and that's what all of us have that. And my little trick was laying on the tile floor with my shirt off.
Nice.
It's the only thing in the house that's relatively cold. And then the space under you would heat up. And as soon as it would heat up, you'd just roll over again. And then you're on a new piece of tile that's cold. And you just keep rolling around the room for hours and hours. So in the pit of my despair, I'm laying on the floor with my shirt off on the tile, and I'm just completely miserable, just depressed, anxious, overwhelmed, totally underprepared for just the idea of even running a business. I have no background. My family were, my grandfather was a farmer and a truck driver. My dad worked in a rental yard. And he broke himself out of that and went to night school and ended up today he's a CFO, but he didn't start that journey until like his 30s, basically. So there's not a huge history of people going and doing things for themselves, right, in my family. So it was very much trailblazing. And I finally just kind of surrendered, and I decided for the first time in my life to open up I didn't even know what a podcast was, but it was the first time I'd opened one up, and I just typed in marketing into the search bar. And the only thing that came up was the I Love Marketing podcast, Joe Polish's show. That is irritating.
No worries. We're live. We're real time.
So unfortunately, I still have yet to figure out how to shut off the notifications for your phone when it calls through your computer. But anyway, so, I look up this show. I Love Marketing podcast comes up, and I think episode 2 is Joe Polish's story. And I was listening to this kid who was like 90 pounds from freebasing coke. He was like failing in his own business, and he just I listened to this amazing story, and I look at who this guy is now, and he's one of the most respected marketers, entrepreneurs, collaborators in the world. And I connected with his story so deeply, and there were so many things that I felt like were parallels between the two of us. And I, on the floor, I was like, yeah, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know how I'm going to do it, when I'm going to do it. One day I'm going to work with this guy. And the other thing is he mentions this thing called the Genius Network. So $25,000 a year group. And I said, again, I don't know how, I don't know when, but one day I'm going to pay the money and I'm going to walk into that group. And over the next couple of weeks, I think I devoured probably 100+ episodes of that show. I all day, all night listened to this thing. And it just really started this amazing trajectory. And, I've got a call with Joe tomorrow. He and I have become great friends over the past few years. I walked into Genius Network 3 years after that. So it's just, my story is really one of just being stubborn as hell and very hard-headed and continuing to go the same direction and follow my North Star, regardless of what my outcomes were. And eventually, when you have your heading set properly, if you just continually follow it, that stubbornness does tend to pay off. And it's another one of those traits. All entrepreneurs have broken air conditioners and stubbornness.
Oh, absolutely. I call it NFA attitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
But something that really stands out to me in your story, Joe, is that you had that critical moment of like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. When I talk to people who have overcome a lot, there's always some moment where the pain is enough to motivate them in a direction. And they're like, okay, I'm tired of this reality. And I see the possibility of shifting in a new direction. I'm going for it. And that's such a powerful quality to have. When people ask me like, what does it take? I go, well, are you willing? Are you ready? Are you determined? Are you committed? Decide, take action. Anyone can do it. It's just those elements need to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear a lot, a lot of people, they'll talk shit about the secret or manifesting or all this other stuff because they're like, oh, if you just think about things positively, they don't just happen. And
Yeah.
I think to an extent that's kind of true, but I think the quote unquote secret of the secret is that those people aren't just sitting there visualizing. They're like, that's the sort of activity that colors the choices you make, not just the thoughts that you have.
Yeah.
And there are choices that you have to make to create these different outcomes in your life. Like, once I made that decision on the kitchen floor, I didn't just like suddenly wake up the next day and everything was great. I went through years of the same boom bust cycle, but I knew what my North Star was. And every choice that I made was either getting me closer or moving me further away. And if I could just keep tracking that North Star, one day I'm going to be in this group, one day I'm going to be working with this person, one day I'm going to do this. Well, then it eventually works out. A lot of horrible shit happens in the few years between then and now. But every single one of those things was extremely important in the trajectory that I've had. And I mean, I'm in a place that's extremely enviable. As a Genius Network member, there's probably about 300 of us. And only I would say a small fraction of those people have been on the show featured on I Love Marketing podcast, which was the show that got me started. There's a lot of heavy hitters in that room that have never been asked to do that. I got to do that.
That's awesome.
I get to do programming with Joe. So, my big thing is teaching. I get to do the Genius Network programming. So there's all of these amazing things that get to happen because I consistently made those choices regardless of outcome.
Yes. Everyone rewind that. That's so important. That's perseverance, right? Make the choices consistently, consecutively, regardless of the outcome. And in that, the outcome actually is already known. It's inevitable because if you keep on track, and you call it your North Star, I call it fulfilling your genius zone, or I call it genius juice, or following your highest priority values, right? So it's like when you know that and you know the direction you're going and you stay on track, your success is inevitable. Might not happen overnight. Actually, definitely isn't going to happen overnight, but it will happen. So it's so powerful. And I think, talking about the law of the manifestation and law of attraction and stuff like that, my people know that I talk a lot about that stuff, and I totally agree. I love it when people say to me, that doesn't work. And I go, well, yeah, of course it doesn't work if you daydream all day about something you think you want and you don't believe you can have it and you don't take action toward it. Because your action actually shows that you really want it to happen. So it's then in alignment, and then you can manifest those things like getting to hang out with Joe Polish and have him be one of your friends.
Right. And I think that's the big thing. Most people are not ready to. So here's the thing. And I'll say this to your audience the same way I say it to all of my people. You will make the change when the pain of doing exactly what you're doing today is finally worse than the pain of stepping into the unknown to go do the thing that scares the shit out of you. Okay, yes. So if today becomes scarier or more painful, then you'll finally make the shift. But if things go in that, I know Anthony was on your show. Anthony Trucks is a client of mine, and now Make the Shift has appeared in my language all the time. I love it. So I'll give Anthony a little shout out there.
Yeah, the Shift podcast. He's awesome.
Exactly. I love Anthony. He's actually a neighbor too. He lives like half a mile away.
Oh, cool.
When that pain of doing like butting your head against the wall and just being frustrated and miserable and unhappy and just that going through the meat grinder feeling, when that becomes more painful than the scary, horrible feeling of going and taking that leap, then you'll make the leap. So if you haven't made the leap yet, you need to genuinely look at yourself and say, have I hit this bottom?
Yeah.
Right? Like there's genuinely, maybe you have 6 months more where you need to suffer before this is painful enough. But you need to genuinely look at yourself and say, where I am today, is this more painful, what I'm going through, than the thing that most scares me? Like for me, this is actually really interesting. I made it to Genius Network for the first time in 2015. And I made a ton of money at the event. Now I didn't go there to sell either. I actually had to beg, borrow, and steal, basically. Dan Kushel at the time was running Genius Network as the, let's call it like the CEO. It's Joe's group, but Dan was the business runner. And I had to beg poor Dan Kushel. I called him like 8 times because you had to make a minimum of $1 million a year. And I was like, I'm tracking there. My trajectory is there. I can do this. And he'd be like, well, and I'd call him again and I'd call him again. So finally, I get into this thing. I've convinced poor Dan Kushel. They're stuck with me. And I told him, listen, I'm not going to go there to sell. I'm not going there to make money off your community. I'm going to genuinely be a resource and try to be helpful and informative. And if it benefits me, wonderful. If it does not, totally fine. But I want to go there to soak up the knowledge in the room and be, a multiplier for people. And that was the thing that put them over the edge and let me go. Well, I think the first time I paid 10 grand to go. Okay. And my 10 grand got me access to just the big event, right? I wasn't a full member like I am now. And I made like $300-something thousand off of that $10,000 because I went there to be helpful and to be a resource. Now, I thought, this was like I hit the moon moment. Like, this is the most amazing thing in the world. Like, this is awesome. And 7 months later, I was back down to being like completely broke. Right. And so you go through these boom busts, and I made terrible choices with partners. I made terrible choices with, different, like even just personal relationships. All of my choices were so self-destructive and silly that it didn't matter how amazing the moonshot moment was, like right back down to reality. And so my second bottom was sitting on the couch of my shitty little apartment in Sacramento after having this amazing high where I thought I was about to be like this god of my industry, to sitting on the couch and being like, oh, I understand now. Like, I'm not there yet, but I understand why some people consider killing themselves. Like, this is like, it's such a rapid high and such a low that I get it. And understanding that and having that moment where I was like, wow, seeing this flying up, this amazing high that I was feeling in November, and sitting on the couch going, I get why people kill themselves in June, is a huge, huge swing. It's a huge swing. And that bottom is when I was like, I just have to do things differently.
Okay, so much gold here. Thank you for sharing. And listeners here know that I always bring on guests who are really willing and open to sharing their stories to help other people. I want to highlight several things that you talked about in there. One was, being a multiplier for the people and creating win-win situations. Super powerful when you step into any setting, to always be thinking, how can I show up and serve, instead of thinking, how can I show up and get? Very different energy you're putting out there, different way that you talk to people, different way you connect with people. And so I think that's a really powerful point. I want to talk to you mostly because, you're talking about the boom bust cycle and making it, being determined and driven, getting there, and then having the success, and then kind of falling flat on your face. Right. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of, have you ever read The Big Leap before by Gay Hendricks?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so you're like perfectly categorizing what he talks about when we hit an upper limit problem, is what he calls it. So we have these big moments where we hit an upper limit problem and we step into our zone of genius, and then we get scared, and it almost like we self-sabotage basically through different methods of exactly like what you're saying, strained relationships, or it could be worry, it could be getting sick, could be substance use, could be all kinds of different things. But, I'm starting to think about it as this really, it's like an upper limit ceiling that we have. And it's an invisible moment where in order to break through it, we've got to get really conscious of what our upper limit tolerance is, And so I'm curious for you, when you talk about the boom bust cycle, when was your last bust, would you say? And I know we're constantly growing and having breakthroughs, but like, when would you say was your last kind of real bust bottom moment?
2016.
Okay. Awesome.
That was it. That was after that, all my decisions, I won't say all my decisions, but things have just improved and improved and improved. And you made a really good point about this upper limit. The reason why that all happened was I did not have the capacity to be more successful. And I don't mean that like, oh, I didn't have a team around me. Oh, I didn't have this. Oh, I didn't have that. I'm talking human capital. I'm talking my own knowledge, my own ability to manage what that looks like, to know what it's like to be in the upper room and how to handle that and how to maintain all of that. And it didn't help that, I'm starting my business young.
Yeah.
And I'm still young. But when that all happened, I was like 22.
Yeah.
So to go and kind of have this big moment and to be kind of singled out, and then you're not prepared for that.
No. Well, it's like you're laying on the floor, coal hot and just kind of like really down in the dumps. And then you have this huge, massive success. It's like, we don't exactly know how to handle it. It makes me think of like a child star or something, right? Like that's a lot to manage if you haven't developed the mindset around how to handle success and how to work with people and how to, manage money, all of those things. And it's that thermostat point. So my question is, since 2016 for you, what changed? What did you do to change yourself in order to be the person who can handle that type of success?
The biggest thing I did was I focused on what I was really passionate about. And that's such a huge cliche to be like, oh, if you just do what you're passionate about, you'll be successful. That is not true. If you do what you're passionate about and you apply the basics and you constantly work on improving and learning, etc., then you'll be successful. So here are the things that I focused on. And I can give them to you in order. And I think if you have audience members that ever listen to your show with a pen in hand, this is probably the pen moment.
Awesome. Well, I have one in hand, so that's great.
Exactly. Follow Dr. Amanda's amazing lead and pick up your pen, because the biggest things that I did was I instantly shifted away from things that made me unhappy. I coach around this all the time, where I have people go like, how do I know when I should just pull the cord and run? And I say, even if you can quit only if you visualize everything working out and you're still not happy, then quit and do something else, right? And I was at the time running an agency still. I wasn't doing the curriculum thing that I'm doing now. I was still running an agency, and we were doing automation. We were doing all the stuff. We were making a lot of money, working with a lot of big people. And I sat there and I said, okay, well, even if this works out with my current partner, the current choices I'm making, the current everything that I'm doing, would I be happy? And I was like, no, I could have, $20 million and still be like, this is bullshit. I don't want to do this. That was the first change. So I said, okay, what am I passionate about? What do I want to do? And the thing that I mentioned earlier, I'm going to go there. I'm going to be of service to those people. I'm just going to be a resource. That's what I'm passionate about. I wear this little thing on my wrist. If you guys have never heard of the My Intent bracelets, it's a great little reminder, and you guys can, support. It's a great company if you want to go support them. But my bracelet here it just says teach. That's nice. my one word, right?
Love it.
When I focused on teaching, when I focused on being a value maximizer, a force multiplier, someone that does not protect I was working in the Silicon Valley. I was terrified people were going to steal my IP. I was terrified they were going to, every morning I'd wake up and I'd reach behind me and check for knives in my back. It was just like, it was a horrible place to work. And the minute I gave all that up and focused on being a teacher and not expecting everything in return, and just going out and trying to be transformative and authentic, that's when amazing stuff started happening for me.
So beautiful. I love this so much. I know I just interrupted you. I want to say, for people listening, where is that juicy place that you go where you're so inspired that you would do it for free? You love it so much. It doesn't matter. I mean, obviously you're going to make the most money doing the things you love the most, but you would do it for free no matter what. That's where you really tap into your power. So it's like, you're a teacher, you're a born teacher. It's beautiful. And that's, so keep going. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you pointing it out, because I never thought of myself as a teacher, ever. I just was, I always thought I was like like a sales guy or whatever. Like I always thought I knew the right thing to say at the right time. And, I studied before I was this like white hat, cool teacher guy, I would like studied the art of, manipulation and language and sales tactics. Like, I studied under the Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, his sales strategy. Like I've run the gamut on what it looks like to be the bad guy and study under the bad guys. And I thought when I was working in the Valley, that's how you had to be successful.
Yeah.
Is, the art of manipulation and backstabbery. And, I was still young. So that was and I'm still young, but at that very early age in the beginning of my business, I was like, oh, it's just kill or be killed. You have to go, 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 go. It wasn't until starting to mature that I realized the thing that's made me different, and this is another pen moment potentially for some of you, is not all the things that I know. It's all of the things that I'm always trying to learn. Mm-hmm. So in other words, I have always been a lifelong learner. I have not always been good at school. School was never my thing, right? I got into St. John's University to do a law program on a lark. I'm still not sure how that happened. Great school, didn't deserve it. And I still sucked at school. So I dropped out and started a business, right? I taught myself everything I needed to know about running that business. And I continued to learn. I devoured shows like this all the time, every day. I've read hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books, a lot of them covering the same damn topic, because I'll learn the same thing from 100 different angles.
Yes.
And that is how I've built my whole, trajectory. But being a lifelong learner makes you a teacher.
Yeah, I was going to say the flip side of owning that you're a teacher is teachers love to learn and then teach what they're learning, because it's how you really integrate what you've learned.
Mm-hmm. And so look at where I am now, like with what I'm doing today. We talked about, my passion is teaching. Well, the flip side is I've always been that lifelong learner, and now I get to work with the smartest people in the world, and they all know a bunch of stuff that I don't know.
So cool.
And I don't work in one industry where I can pretend and just phone it in. I've done stuff from, jujitsu all the way to, meditation and finding flow states. I've done peak performance in athletics. I've done network engineering. I've done dozens and dozens and dozens of different industries. I would not be shocked if I could probably say I've done over 100 industries in the past couple of years.
Nice.
And I don't know shit about any of those industries, but what gets me excited is that I get to learn about them every time.
Yeah, so cool. So let's go there. I want to know about, in your teaching to scale model, you talk a lot about, just from what I've gotten to know and gather, you talk about this transition away from the guru modality of being a thought leader into let's teach a totally different way. Will you talk to us about your method and how you see the online world moving in that way, and how you're a leader in that force of going, I'm going to be a different kind of teacher, and I'm going to help people scale their businesses through my model?
Awesome. Yeah. The thing that you all have seen over the past few years is this explosion of the guru model, right? Like you can't go on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube right now without being surrounded by ads from, Grant Cardone in front of his jet, or to a lesser extent, I'll even say Dan Locke, not because he's doing things wrong, but because he's top of mind right now. Sorry, Dan. But there's a lot of people, Graziosi, Dean Graziosi, Tony's up there all the time. And what's happening is in 2013, 14, kind of the right around the time Digital Marketer came out with The Machine, right? When Ryan Dice exploded, and he's another guy that you can't avoid online. When those things happened, traffic was cheap. So because traffic was cheap, you would end up being able to pay like not very much money and generate thousands of hits to a page. And because you could generate thousands of hits to a page for free, we built businesses around scale, not around relationships, right? Which is why all of you go on and you're like, oh my gosh, this person's going to give me their book for free. I just have to pay shipping. And then you end up in this funnel that's got 12 steps, and you paid $7 for the free plus shipping. Now it's $19 for the next step, and then $37 for the next one, and $97 for the next one. And you just keep getting stepped up and up and up. That worked when traffic was cheap. Okay, so if you guys are trying to build a business today around teaching and you copy those models and you don't have a war chest, or you're not funded by the Rothschilds or something, it's a hell of a lot more difficult to follow that model today. So here's the general long and short of it on how things are changing. Traffic has gone up hundreds of % in cost. Okay. Just this year, for the first time ever, Facebook advertising, just online advertising in general, has surpassed all other advertising medias in ad buy. That includes, I'm talking the Nikes of the world, the Coca-Colas of the world, the Apples of the world. They're putting their money in there. When they do, they're raising the level of the tide for guys like us who just want to go test our product out and genuinely want to help people. They're making it, let's call it the sea of noise is getting louder and the tide is going higher. The problem is your audience is being suffocated by other people's advertising, right? And those people are not ethical in the first place. So if you're going to copy the unethical folks, you're going to have a hell of a time if you're an ethical person, right? There is a shift that is happening right now. It started about a year ago. It'll keep going for about 2 more years. And then you'll all have a really strong 5-year window or so where you get to say goodbye to the guru model and focus on really being an action leader. I tell my people all the time, the world's got enough thought leaders. Go on LinkedIn and type in thought leader and you'll see, 10 million people calling themselves thought leaders, and the world has enough thoughts. We wake up, probably have 10,000 thoughts a day. The world needs people that are actually going to give folks a transformative action to take, give people a result. The guru model doesn't require you to give people a result. It requires you to sell them something for cheap so that they don't feel like they've been screwed when they don't get a result and they go take another bite of the apple, right? You all get the opportunity. You're bringing something amazing to the market. You're genuinely helping people. If you genuinely believe in what you're doing and your ability to create change for people that is transformative, positive, action-based, then you have the moral obligation to eschew the guru model, to walk away from that, to shift into this new paradigm where you get to be the trusted advisor. There's something so powerful about being the trusted advisor. The guru is a shiny object off in the distance that you see, but you never get to touch or interact with. The trusted advisor is somebody that you can call, right? And they're going to give you advice based on whether or not it makes them money. I tell people all the time, they'll come to me, hey, should I do this? I want to work with you. This is my idea. And I'll say, I'm the wrong guy for that. You should work with this person. Right down the road, work with me if this, and this happens. But right now, for where you are, go do that. Okay? Trusted advisor doesn't look to put money in his pocket at every turn. That's a huge difference. That's a shift that all of you can make in the next year to 18 months. that you can ride the wave as that kind of grows over the next 5 years. And you guys are the ones that become the incumbents, right? Not the Cardones, the Graziosis, the Russell Brunsons, the whatever. You guys all have an opportunity now to get in on this curve and be authentic.
Ooh, so much good stuff here. It's so interesting because I'm thinking about like all the different types of listeners I have and you know, building businesses and the way that in any industry, this is a powerful model. You know, even if you don't have an online business, let's say even I have a lot of real estate investors who follow me and that I work with. And I think about how, you know, it's like often we are seeking the guru model in terms of being the best of the best of the best. And then we compare ourselves to that and try to create ourselves to be that. And it's never fulfilling because you're not going to get there. You know, there's only a few of those people, first of all, right? It's like you're saying, in order to scale to that level, you'd have to have been in at the right time to be able to buy the ad force to get to that level. And then it's also, you know, something I highly value about one of my main mentors is like, he's in the room with you, like on the floor, you know, like not on a stage. And there's not that many people. And it's like, you know each other, you give each other hugs and you ask direct questions and you have contact. You know, it's something for me that's really important with the people I work with. I go, like, I don't want you to hold me up on a pedestal and pretend like I'm, you know, some amazing person that's so much better than you and you can never get to where I've gotten. The whole purpose is for me to help you get to where I've gotten and for us to do it together. You know, and so I love your model. I mean, I really, really, you know, for everyone listening, I met Joe through, this is cool actually, I met Joe through someone who now is in my mastermind, but also like we've worked together, we're friends. And she introduced me to Joe and she said, oh, I'm working with this guy, Joe. He's amazing. You got to come to his office hours and just, you know, check him out and see him. And so we hopped on a call and I really, really love your model because it is so personable. You're so approachable. And, you know, that office hour piece is one of those elements of being a trusted advisor, of being close instead of distant and holding yourself in this place where, oh, you've got to go through 10 layers of people to even try to get to talk to you. So I think I'm curious for you, where did that begin, that thought process of going, oh, we've got to kind of do this a little differently if we want to scale our business in a new way and let go of the guru model?
Well, I'll give you the, wow, I'm such a smart philosophical guy answer, and I'll give you the dollar and cents answer. Cool. Because the dollar and cents answer to why we made that switch is it doesn't make sense to spend, you know, like I take my people through this model all the time, but imagine all of you have 4 steps in your campaign before they can buy the big thing. Okay. And just for argument's sake, let's call it a free level, a $10 level, a $50 level, and a $100 level. And we make all our money at the $100 level. Let's even say, hypothetically, let's call the $100 level a $500 level because the math will make more sense to you. In the old days, if you wanted to make real money, you would have to drive, let's say, 10,000 people to the free, knowing that 20% of them are going to take the $10 level, right? So now we have 2,000 people that paid us $10. Decent, right? We have from the 2,000 people, maybe 10% take the $50 level. So now we have 200 people. And then maybe of those people, 1% will take the $1,000 level. So all said and done, you know, you made maybe somewhere in the neighborhood. I'm not even adding it up in my head so somebody else can do the math for me. But you're usually yielding somewhere in like the $30,000+ range. Okay. That was awesome when traffic was super cheap. Because back then you could pay for the $2,000 conversions or the 2,000 conversions at $10, which would be 20 grand, your nut that would carry through everything else. You would maybe be spending like $5 or $10 for each of those.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's easy, right? I mean, you're profitable. Now those things cost like $10, $15, sometimes $20 to sell something that's $10. So your profitability is just decimated on the front end, right? And your product pricing, you're wading through so many steps, and it's this war of attrition where it's like, start with 100, go to 50. Go from 50% down to 20%. Go from 20% down to 2%. And those are the people that take the full offer. So now when you were profitable by 20 grand 5 years ago, you may be negative 20 grand because your just offer structure doesn't make any sense. So from a dollars and cents point of view, there's just too many steps in the system to justify the pricing of advertising today. Okay. So then we go to the philosophical side, and I like to pretend that I'm smarter than I am. So I'll say that the philosophical side is where we started, but I don't know if that's necessarily true. What I have noticed throughout my career is the most important thing for anyone is access. Okay. Access is so crucial. And I'll tell you, before I was ever in Genius Network back in 2012, I took a shot in the dark and I sent Joe Polish a message on LinkedIn, and I asked him about addiction and some of the things that he'd gone through. And I asked him if the success he'd attained had actually made him a happier person or not. Right. And that was the message I sent. And it took 8 months for me to get a response. But the fact that I got the response kept me engaged with that dream of one day being in the room for 2 years. It was you know what? I have this relationship. We would send each other a message. He would respond to me 8 months later. I'd respond to him 3 seconds after he sent that. And then 11 months later, I'd get the next one. Right. But it was just enough where I was okay, cool. This is this person knows who I am. That's great.
Well, and when you're talking about access, you're talking about relationship building, right? That's really what you're talking about, is relationship building and having access to people who have as the trusted advisor.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's a humanity to business that none of you should forget. And I think over the past few years, we've forgotten about that because of the guru model. And I'll tell you, it's bullshit. Any of you that are students of advertising, that are students of marketing, don't pay attention to the trend over the past few years. Go back and study marketing and advertising in the 1920s. Go read Claude Hopkins, Scientific Advertising. Go read Ogilvy on advertising from the 60s. Right? Go read Robert Collier Letterbook from the 50s. Okay, these are the guys that we base all of our decisions on today. And what they show you is that this trend of the self-serving guru model is kind of a new one, which means it's also probably not going to last.
Yeah. I want to say for listeners, a really practical, actionable strategy and a takeaway from what you're saying is, asking yourself that question of how can I be an accessible advisor in whatever industry I'm in? How can I be an accessible relationship building person in my industry, so the people that I'm providing solutions for can talk to me about what I have to offer? And this model could cut to, I know you usually teach online people who want to scale their business online, correct?
Yeah, we do a lot of our normal group coachings or things like that. They're obviously digital. We work with a ton of people like Anthony in person, or, we were heading to Toronto in a couple of weeks.
When I was asking that, I meant you work with people who want to build an online business.
Yes and no. So online business is really easy. It's an easy way to approach what we do. But we also work with people that want to build these sorts of products and sell them physically. So maybe they sell them on the stage, or maybe they sell them, whatever.
Awesome. Okay.
It's really about our ethic is not about online programs. It's about making sure that everyone we work with are more effective teachers, more effective curriculum builders.
Okay.
Most people take that online.
Okay. That's what I wanted clarification on. So we only have a few more minutes, darn it. I want to talk to you for several hours, but a few more questions. One, let's go with this first. What would you say? First, I think, let me recap for people. I think that there were a lot of powerful takeaways. For me, listening to you speak, I'm noticing my brain starts going the brainstorm way of helping my people think about how to be more accessible no matter what industry they're in. So it's a huge takeaway because, instead of this model of like, oh, I got to think about the funnel and automation and, how do I get it out there as fast as possible? How about if we shift to this idea of like, okay, actually, how do I become really accessible? But in a, like your office hours is such a great example. Go, okay, have one time a week where you do office hours and people can plug into you and ask you any question they want. That is so powerful. So whoever's listening, if you get that one takeaway, that idea comes from Joe, and he is the master of helping people scale their business in creative ways like that to build relationships in the scalability way. Moving into max potential habits. So, this is a habits podcast. I think of mindset as a habit. I think that your mindset is the foundation of your success. And obviously the habits part is how you implement your thoughts. So I'm curious, what are the top 3 habits that you believe got you where you are today?
I would say the number one habit is the lifelong learning thing. I mean, I have gone and worked tirelessly not to always say like, oh, what's going to move the needle next? Like what's going to put money in my pocket right now? It's always, who is the right person for me to learn from on X? And I don't necessarily need an ROI on that immediately. I don't necessarily need it for years, but I will read hundreds of books. I mean, I've done a book a week for the past 3 years. And my Audible account will attest to that. But I am constantly looking for what are the needle movers, like what are who are the people that I can look at as mentors, as opportunities to learn and grow and step into something bigger. The other thing, so the first one would just be, I guess, looking for mentors or keeping that lifelong learner mentality.
Awesome.
The second thing that I would say has been insanely valuable to me is collaboration. Always looking at how we can be collaborative, how we can be helpful, how we can be useful. I teach a lot about this idea of arbitrage, right? Like I know my biggest problem is someone else has the answer to it. And their biggest problem, I have the answer to. And if I can just find that person and we can come together, then I instantly step into this rarefied space of what we call it, exponential growth rather than linear growth, right? And that's a Jay Abraham thing. And so that's my second one is collaboration. I have made more money off of being collaborative than I have off of being selfish. Right. And I think that's the way of the world, frankly. The third habit that I would say all of you need to always embody is this habit of being giving. Okay. This is different than collaborative. Being giving is me never protecting what I think is the most important thing, right? You will never get on. For example, if any of you come to office hours, and you can always come to office hours, it's a totally free thing. It's not a pitch fest. I don't think I've ever pitched anything on there, but you go to teachtoscale.com/office hours. You'll be dropped into the bottom of the page. Just write in your name and email. You'll get basically a broadcast from me that'll say when we're going live. And so you just go in, join the calls. But office hours is me being freely giving of everything that I would do honestly in each situation. So if you say, hey, I'm in this complicated situation, I want to launch a product, how would you build the funnel? I don't do the weird thing of like, oh, I'm going to show you half of it, but not show you how to actually do it. We give you the roadmap on everything you ask for. That is your time to ask me anything about the world of curriculum building, teaching, online business, funnels, marketing, advertising. That is your time. That's when I get to be of service. That is the habit. That's the third thing that you always need to be looking for.
Super powerful. Okay, recapping: lifelong learning, collaboration, and being giving. And I love so much how all of these are foundational for creating win-win relationships, right? So it's like in that lifelong learning, you're looking to people to bring you steps to mastery, and then you're implementing and sharing their knowledge. And then in the collaboration, the joint venture world, it's like, oh, the connections I've made through wanting to collaborate and just even being of service and being giving and going like, hey, I come on my podcast, which in a way it's like that win-win for everybody, right? Like I'm winning right now because I'm learning from you. I'm getting to share with my audience. My audience is winning because they're getting to learn for free. It's just like so incredible on so many levels. And so I highly, highly value those. I know that you just talked about your office hours. Tell us the best places to find you, because I know people are definitely going to want to connect. And I'm telling everyone here who's listening, get on the office hours. I mean, really, Joe is like there hanging out. You can ask him any questions about building your business and he's there for you. So really powerful resource. The link will be in the show notes and everything that he shares right now. So would you say that's the very best way to connect with you?
I would love it if you guys came to my free stuff. My free stuff is genuinely where I like to show up the most, so you don't get like a neutered version of me or anything. So again, if you guys want to go to my website, teachtoscale.com/office hours, you can sign up and show up. We do that every week, Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific. And I am not an early riser, so 8 a.m. is a sacrifice for me that I make for you guys every week. And I usually go between 1-2 hours. Drop in whenever you want. A lot of the time we're just, I'll take questions at the beginning, figure out where everybody is, what they want to talk about, and then we just start going back and forth. It's like a 2-hour hot seat. So it's super valuable. It's probably the most fun thing I get to do as well. And you can always find us, on social media at Teach to Scale, basically on everything. But I won't lie to you, because they're moving away from the guru thing. I really don't care about social media that much. I know that's like a sin in the world of online marketing. I don't. You'll see me posting on our blog every once in a while. We're kicking off a new podcast, which I want to have you on, of course. And so there's a lot of really fun stuff. But honestly, if you're going to do anything, before you ever pay us a dime, come to office hours, hang out with us for a few weeks. I don't care if you ever pay us. Just show up when you have questions. We want to be of service.
Cool. So great. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that you all had your pen and paper. You got a ton of value. I know you did. I have a couple pages of notes that I've been taking, and thank you so much for coming on, Joe. It's been awesome.
Thank you for having me. I hope it was helpful for some people out there. There's got to be somebody out there who is in the right place at the right time today that heard this, and it makes a difference. So that always makes me happy. If you guys love this, or if you get a lot out of it, I'd love for you guys to either show up to office hours or just blow me up on Facebook and let me know that, it meant something to you. Because that's, as a teacher, the most important thing for me is just knowing that it made a difference. I couldn't be happier than when I get those random Facebook messages.
Yes.
So my email's joe@teachtoscale.com if you guys want to bug me.
And it's with an E on the end. So joe@teachtoscale.com. And I still agree with that. So for all of you listening, I was talking to someone the other day about, why I do a podcast. And I was like, when I get those messages from people, they take a screenshot and they say like, oh my God, this was awesome. That makes my entire week. Like I love, love, love being here to bring you value. So make sure that you hit us both up in that way and let us know what you got out of it. And for everyone listening, thank you for being here. I'll be back next week. I hope you have a max potential week where you thrive and feel alive. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Max Potential Habits podcast. If you're liking what you've heard, it would be so incredibly awesome if you would subscribe to the channel and leave a 5-star rating and a written review. This helps me help more people while we grow our NFA community so we can rock it out together. For Max Potential Habits resources, go to nfacoaching.com where you can access all of my resources. There's free ebooks, PDF checklists, a journal template, a business mindset meditation kit, and so much more. Plus, links to NFA coaching on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And if you're super serious about up-leveling, there's also a link to schedule a free consult to work with me in group or one-on-one coaching. Until next time, I hope you have a Max Potential Habits Day where you get inspired to do whatever it takes to transform into the most empowered version of yourself so you can lead a rich, thriving, kick-ass life and business.